Good afternoon. My name is Rashaun Thomas, and this is my op-ed video for BEHS 364, Alcohol in U.S. Society. A couple things before we get started. Throughout the course of this video, I will be referring to some written material. So all the actual citations will be listed in the description box below the video. Next thing. Throughout the course of the video, like I stated previously, I will be referring to some written material. So I went ahead and broke down every quote that I've taken into talking points with a numerical value assigned to make it a little bit easier for anyone who wants to go ahead and check my references versus what I'm saying in the video. So I tried to make it as simple as possible for everybody to follow along. So you got your talking points, and then you will check the talking point numerically assigned number against the actual citation in the bottom of the description. So with that being said, we can go ahead and get started with the video. So the activity that I chose to abstain from for this case study would be video games. I myself am an avid gamer. And when you use the term gamer, it's used across all platforms, Xbox, PlayStation, and PC games as well. So throughout the rest of the video, I'll be referring to people who will play video games on a consistent basis as gamers. All right? So this was a really interesting trial for me because I've never really had to physically abstain from playing video games because it's never been a detriment to anything that I had going personally, financially, or professionally. So I thought this would be a really interesting topic for me to go ahead and tackle, especially seeing how I enjoy playing video games so much. So before we can go any further, the first thing I'd like to do is have a concrete definition of the term addiction. Because before we can start comparing the different types of addictions, i.e. video game addiction versus alcohol addiction, we need to have a concrete definition of what addiction really means. So talking point 1. As newly defined by the American Society of Addiction Medicine, addiction is primarily a chronic disease involving brain reward, motivation, and related circuitry. End quote. Now that we've went ahead and defined what addiction actually is with a concrete term, we can actually start to look at the different types of addiction when in relation to alcohol and video games. All right, talking point 2. Alcohol dependency is a complex disorder that includes the social and interpersonal issues mentioned above, and includes biological elements as well. These elements are related to tolerance, withdrawal, cognitive thinking problems that include craving and behavioral abnormalities, including the impaired ability to stop drinking. Now, unfortunately, I might have to run right into talking point 3 on this one. Video game addiction can be defined as excessive and compulsive use of computer or video games that result in social and/or emotional problems. Despite these problems, the gamer is unable to control this excessive use. End quote. Now, what's really important to remember in this particular case is when you actually look at the addiction to alcohol and the addiction to video games, the addiction to alcohol can outwardly manifest itself in different forms, cravings, shakes, things of that nature. Now, if you look at something in terms of like video game addiction, there are no outward manifestations when someone is suffering from video game addiction. So I think it's really important that we go ahead and correlate those two and the differences that how it can physically manifest itself when someone has a substance abuse problem versus a video game problem. Talking point 4. Surveys in the United States and social psychological experiments have shown that both conforming and deviant behavior while under the influence are more a function of sociological, cultural, and individual expectations and attitudes than the sociological and behavioral effects of alcohol. End quote. Now, this quote is really relevant to when you start exploring the different avenues of actual video games. And in video game culture, there are a lot of online aspects where you actually interact with real people in real time. So online video game culture is a subculture within itself. And what's really interesting is when you actually compare the deviant behavior that can be displayed in groups of people who have substance abuse problems and indulge in those substances together, you can still have that same deviant behavior manifest itself in online gaming communities. A really large problem that online gaming communities have is a lot of these players who are in their own space communicating with different people across the world playing the same games. They tend to spit out a lot of inappropriate, sexist, racist, and all kind of other negative comments. and there are no real consequences to it. So I think it's kind of interesting that you can have these same deviant behaviors manifest themselves in both cultures, just done differently. Now that I'm actually done giving all the academic perspectives of the reason why I chose this particular topic and how it relates to alcohol usage and abuse relates to video game usage. So September 20th was the day that I started abstaining from my video game uses. This is really relevant because in the video game marketplace, the biggest games of the year tend to come out in the fourth quarter of the fiscal year. And when these video games come out, the larger manufacturers have what's called beta testing. And beta testing is nothing more than the manufacturers giving out a free version of the upcoming game to test for bugs. And when they give out this version, it's only for a limited time. And they release it to the public, and you actually get to test the games and give you feedback. And as of right now, we're getting ready to go into fourth quarter of the fiscal year. So a lot of beta testing is happening. So this is something that I'm missing, and it's absolutely killing me because a lot of big titles are coming out this year, and unfortunately, for the 3-day period, I wasn't able to take place in the actual beta testing, which is a lot of fun and it's free. Can't beat free. The last thing about beta testing, it is a very limited time. The longest beta test I've ever seen happen was with Titanfall 2, and that was for 2 weeks. So that being said, that was a personal sacrifice I had to make for this particular project. And I think this project happened at a really good time because there's some actual consequences to me giving up my video gaming. So I think it was just really spot on that it just happened to happen this way. So that was actually pretty great. So the next thing that I noticed during my abstinence period was the actual division in my home life. I currently live in a 3-story townhouse, and my man cave is located on the first floor of the house. Now, my wife, she likes to spend a lot of her leisure time on the second floor in the living room. Now, when I'm playing video games or watching Hulu or whatever I'm doing in the basement, I'm physically separated from my wife. And this can tend to develop issues in my marriage because my wife prefers that we spend our leisure time in the same room participating in the same activities. The result of the abstinence was a noticeable change in my wife's attitude. I spent basically all of my free leisure time involved with the same activities that she's doing and physically in the same room. So my video gaming actually caused a physical division in my home. So that's one of the major differences I noticed is my wife's attitude got a lot better because I was physically present to take part in whatever she was doing in her leisure time. Now, according to my wife, I have a video game addiction. I'm inclined to disagree with her because my video game habit does not interfere with any of my daily activities and or responsibilities. From a financial standpoint, my buying of video games does not adversely affect our household budget. But on the converse side of the same coin, my video game habit has caused friction in my relationship because of the amount of time that I spend playing video games. When my wife is generally displeased with my behavior, her go-to move is to threaten my Xbox. And 9 times out of 10, I go ahead and comply with her request because she might be a crazy person and she really might hurt my Xbox. So in summary, I will say this exercise has really shown how my video game playing has really affected my household, specifically my wife, because we don't have any children, it's just her and I. So I really seen the difference in her attitude in how things flow in our household. And since I've finished my abstinence period, I've really cut down my video gaming to probably about half the time I would normally play because I'm actually spending more time with my wife and being more involved with her day-to-day activities. And it's going really well. So it's been a lot of positive feedback from this particular experiment. So that's all I have. I hope everyone enjoyed the video. And again, all of our references will be listed in the description block below. Have a good evening, and I really hope to get an A.